Did you know that you can get a DUI for being drunk while riding a horse? Yes, you heard that right. In many states, a horse counts as a vehicle, even though it's a living thing. So you can go to jail even though your horse was technically driving and he wasn't even drunk. You might be surprised, as I was, to find out how many things can count as vehicles when it comes to a DUI. You might ask, what about lawnmowers? You better believe it. If you can ride a lawnmower, then you can get a DUI on it. It doesn't matter how slow it moves or where you're riding it. What about an ATV? Those are all-terrain vehicles, and they're not even supposed to be on the road. So can you get a ticket for operating one if you've been drinking? Yes, you absolutely can. Just because it doesn't go on the road doesn't mean it's not a vehicle. So maybe your next question is, Darryl, can you get a DUI for operating a piece of farm or construction equipment? I think you know what my answer is. People have gotten DUIs for driving a tractor under the influence. And the same thing goes for things like cranes and forklifts. You know how those warnings that say, do not operate heavy machinery? Well, this is the heavy machinery they're talking about. It's even more strict for railway workers. If a train conductor's blood alcohol test isn't an absolute zero, they're fired. There's no tolerance for drinking on that job. And conductors don't even steer a train. It's always going in the same direction. Depending on the state, it can even get more strict than that. In Florida, you can get a DUI on a bicycle or in a golf cart, or a skateboard, or a pair of roller skates. This will blow your mind. According to Florida DUI statutes, even a motorized wheelchair is eligible for a DUI. But here's the most surprising one. You can actually get a DUI for a vehicle you aren't even in. That's right. It's called drinking and droning, and it has been legal in New Jersey since 2018. It was the last bill that Governor Chris Christie signed into law before he left office. If you crash a drone or you cause damage, it can cost you big if you've been drinking. A drunk droning charge can get you up to 6 months in jail. Wow. America is serious about cracking down on alcohol-caused accidents, and they have to be. The United States buys over $250 billion worth of alcoholic beverages every year. This country has a love-hate relationship with alcohol. It's a huge and profitable industry that has made many American companies rich. But it was also completely illegal here from 1920 to 1933. To this day, 33 states have laws that allow counties to decide if they want to ban the sale of alcohol. Tennessee and Kansas are dry states by default. A dry state is one where alcohol sales are banned. In Tennessee and Kansas, a community has to pass a special law in order to be able to sell alcohol. There are also currently at least 4 states that ban alcohol sales on Sunday. That's what they call the Blue Law, which are laws created to protect the Sabbath day for Christians. Many have been repealed, but some still exist. But on the other side of the fence, there are cities that thrive with alcohol sales. New Orleans and Las Vegas are 2 of the biggest tourist destinations in the country. Both of them have some of the loosest alcohol laws in the U.S. American alcohol laws are different depending on where you live. That's because there aren't many federal alcohol laws. The 21st Amendment grants individual states the right to make their own alcohol laws. That's why there are even different names for the same alcohol charge depending on your state. Some places call it driving under the influence, others call it driving while intoxicated or operating a vehicle impaired. There are many other names that all boil down to the same thing. You have alcohol, then you drive. And it's not just drive either. You can get a DUI on a boat, a jet ski, a razor scooter, a snowmobile, even a unicycle. If there's something you can ride on while drunk, you can probably get a DUI on it. There's a constant push and pull with these laws. There's the very American desire to make money on one hand. On the other hand are the more traditional and conservative values. You can see this struggle very clearly with other kinds of alcohol charges beyond DUI. Some things become illegal if you do them while drinking. Others are already illegal, but you are punished more severely if you drink while doing them. For example, reckless driving. You know what that is, right? That's when you drive in an erratic and dangerous fashion, going through stoplights or stop signs, swerving, any behavior that causes an increase in danger on the road. But have you heard of a wet reckless? Believe it or not, wet reckless is not the name of a professional poker player. A wet reckless is just reckless driving accompanied by drinking. In most states, this change happens because the driver was drinking, but they weren't impaired up to the legal limit. Fines can be more severe than a normal reckless driving charge. In many states, it's perfectly legal to own a gun and to fire it in a controlled environment. But when alcohol is involved, it's a whole new ballgame. Even if you don't injure someone with the gun, the act of using it while under the influence of alcohol is illegal. It's a second-degree misdemeanor in some states, and you could potentially get 60 days in jail or 6 months of probation. Another example of alcohol making a legal act illegal is an open container law. There is no rule that says you can't have an open bottle of soda or water in your car, but over 40 states have laws that say you can be fined or having an open container of alcohol inside a vehicle. It doesn't matter if you drank from it or if it's yours. You could be completely sober and still get an open container charge. Some alcohol charges can get worse just because of your location. Like the open container law, let's say you're pulled over coming back from a day at the beach. If you get an open container charge, that will likely cost less than $100 in most states. But if you were caught with an open container in a national park like Yellowstone, that's a whole different story. You could get a $5,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail. Keep that in mind next time you open a beer in Yosemite or at the Grand Canyon. The reason isn't much more severe is because it's a federal charge. There aren't many federal alcohol prohibitions, but the ones that exist are serious. Federal rules apply to airlines as well. In Kentucky, and I know a little about Kentucky, if you get a drunk and disorderly charge, you could be looking at 90 days in jail and a $250 fine. But if you're removed from an airplane for drunken behavior, it's much worse. It could cost you a $35,000 fine and potentially a 20-year federal prison sentence. Don't risk it. Celebrate with a drink after you land. In one way or another, most alcohol laws come down to where you are when you're drunk. And sometimes those rules are decades old and haven't been updated or repealed. For example, it's illegal to be drunk on a train in Michigan. And I don't mean as a conductor, I mean as a passenger. They passed a law in 1913 that it is still on the books. Over 110 years ago, back before Prohibition was created and then repealed. That's a major difference from the two tourist towns I mentioned earlier. Alcohol is sold around the clock 7 days a week in both New Orleans and Las Vegas. There are no enforced closing times for bars in those towns. But even in those tourist towns, there are still some interesting rules about where and how you can drink. For instance, in both towns, you're allowed to drink in public. However, you are not allowed to drink from a bottle or glass container. Most places will give you the plastic cups for your drinks. Glass is against the law because it shatters and leaves dangerous shards. All that plastic does is look ugly and destroy the environment. Las Vegas goes one step further with rules about how far away you need to be from certain places when drinking. You must drink at least 1,000 feet away from schools and hospitals. The same goes for drug and alcohol treatment centers and homeless shelters. I was surprised to see the same rule for churches and synagogues. My guess is that communion wine is exempt from the law. The last rule about distance and drinking in Las Vegas is the most interesting one, I think. If you buy alcohol in a closed container, you have to go 1,000 feet away from the place you bought it before drinking it. For some reason, they can sell you alcohol, but you're not allowed to drink it while you're there. The rules just get more strange and complicated the longer you look at them. You might think these strict rules have something to do with how liberal or conservative a state is, but you wouldn't always be right. For example, Utah is conservative and they have a strict alcohol rule. If you want to buy alcohol at a restaurant, you are also required to buy something to eat. You cannot buy just a drink, so you better have some money to get some jalapeno poppers too. But Massachusetts is a much more liberal state, and their alcohol laws are pretty strict too. So Massachusetts has a ban on happy hours. You literally cannot have a happy hour at a bar. They also prohibit any kinds of special prices on drink. Giving all this conflicting information about alcohol laws, what is the big takeaway? What can we learn from all these different rules? Honestly, it shows that this country always tries to embrace freedom for both sides. Here's what I mean by that. We tried prohibiting alcohol. It lasted for 13 years, and it was not a popular law at all. Many people wanted the ability to relax and have a drink or have several drinks. We decided that that was a freedom that everyone should have. That didn't mean that the country would become a free-for-all with no rules and guidelines. We still wanted to protect people's freedom of religious belief and public safety. That's why there are rules that prevent underage drinking. Kids shouldn't drink before they're physically and emotionally mature enough to handle it. The same goes for rules about buying minors alcohol. Most states have strong laws about contributing to the delinquency of a minor. That's just a fancy way of saying buying underage kids booze. In the end, that's what it all boils down to. Let people have their freedom, keep everyone else safe. That's the foundation of the other two major alcohol-related charges, too. Public intoxication and drunk and disorderly conduct. Those are charges that describe different degrees of the same thing, getting drunk and causing problems in public. You can enjoy alcohol yourself, but when it starts to affect others negatively, that's when the law steps in. So remember, keep yourself and everyone else safe. Don't drink before you get in or on anything with wheels, or skis, or hooves. If you don't drink, be thankful for the freedom that others have to do it themselves. And if you do drink, be respectful of the people who don't. That's how we all benefit from a good system. Thanks for watching Hammer's Law, and be sure to subscribe for more fun and informative legal content.